And now, Dr. Roger Gewolb is our resident expert today. He's the chief exec of Fair Money. Lots to talk about. Roger, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Johnny.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Not bad. We're going to go with ouch as your headline because a recent survey by PricewaterhouseCoopers has disclosed that 81% of British companies plan to raise prices for consumers over the next 2 years to 2026, which begs the question, Roger, how do they know? Is inflation not going to be curbed? Are we not going to see a slight reverse in prices going on for now?
Well, I think there are two things. One is that the Bank of England has not reduced interest rates because they are, quote unquote, combating inflation. Well, I mean, they should have learned by now that raising interest rates 14 times didn't bring inflation down. Comes down this kind of inflation, which isn't driven by consumers all by itself. And I mean, if they keep interest rates high and, God forbid, raise them even more, how in the world is that going to make the price of fuel and energy around the world go down? And how is that going to stop the Houthis from attacking shipping in the North Sea? It's just absurd. Some people say to me, oh, well, yeah, 5.25%, it's not that high. Well, I can remember when I was paying 14% in the 80s or 90s or whatever. But it's not good economics, Johnny, because studies like the Leeds Building Society actually show that so many factors have changed: salaries, house prices, dozens of economic factors, that actually a 6% mortgage today is the equivalent of a 25% mortgage back in 1980.
Really?
Yeah. So it's the very high cost of money today is one factor.
Right.
But I think, to answer you, the market has discounted already, saying this guy Bailey, I call him the Baileyoceros because he and his thick-skinned colleagues just won't seem to listen to anybody that disagrees with them. And the second factor is the instability in the world and the fact that all of these conflicts, Ukraine, Gaza, Red Sea, could escalate. The price of oil could skyrocket and make inflation rise.
Also, the other thing here to worry about, you mentioned that if you weight the interest rate, it's like paying 25%. The Baileyoceros, as you call him, the way that banks are looking at the Bank of England rate is they're sort of ignoring it and looking at the international money markets. And so there is a bit of a competition for interest rates. The downward pressure on paying a mortgage. You can fix a mortgage for much less than you could 2 and 3 and 6 months ago. And that's got nothing to do with the conservatism of the Bank of England. That's to do with the international money markets, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that people are looking at the rest of the world and saying, what is this hold that the banks are being given over us? I mean, much of the world, starting with the United States, has always had nothing but fixed rate mortgages. So Jonny Gould and his partner buy a house and they get a mortgage at, say, 3%, and that's for 30 years or 35 years fixed. I mean, just there's no discussion. You say to the loan officer in the bank, can I have a variable rate? And he said, what's that? Secondly,
even today?
Yeah, even today, but it's always been that way. Secondly, when Jonny sells his house, if he did a good deal, because he's a smart fellow, and he got a mortgage at 2.5, it actually can be passed to the buyer. So in other words, if the buyer would qualify for a mortgage with that particular lender, let's say it's, I don't know, to name a name, if I may, Nationwide or something.
Yeah.
If he could get his own mortgage there on a different property, they will transfer that mortgage to him.
Wow.
And guess what? The price of your house goes up, mate.
Of course it does.
Because you passed him a great deal.
Because it's based on the yield, the overall value.
Exactly.
Whoa, so is that in the USA, Roger?
Yeah, and many other countries. Yeah, really? We're unique. We're unique. Rip off Britain. So I think they're starting to feel pressure from all that, and that's why you're seeing the competitive effect you referred to.
That is so interesting. I had no idea. Thank you for that, Roger. Now, as you've been saying for well over a year since the very first interest rate rise, the Bank of England don't have the kind of inflation that can be curbed by raising the cost of money. The banks, apparently, there's a gigantic £1 trillion of the nation's savings sitting in bank accounts, which are paying less than 2%, while the lowest base rate is whopping 5.25%. Go on, Rog. Let's put pressure on them. Come on.
This is the base rate, Johnny. The base rate means that's the rate that the banks effectively borrow at.
Right. So they could easily go 4%, 5% on your savings, couldn't they?
Oh yeah, I mean that 5.25% to you, sir, is 8, 9, 10, 12
it
or
is.
more.
It's expensive.
So they have given the banks a windfall 14 times of huge amounts of money, and as always, they aren't passing it on. And our politicians on both sides, I mean, you'd think, supposedly representing working people, the Labour would be screaming at the Tories, why aren't you making them pass on more of this windfall they've had? But it's been this way for decades. I've been in this country decades and decades, and it's never changed.
The banks are tooling up with profits, aren't they? What are they going to do with it?
Distribute it to their shareholders and blow it on, probably some bad ideas as well. And get in trouble and we'll bail them out again.
Oh, no, not again. Dr. Roger Gewolb, thank you very much. He's the CEO of Fair Money. That is really enlightening. The Tom